First of all, thank you very much for the opportunity for DBS to give actually a keynote session here. So really appreciate that. So special thanks to HashKey and Wanjong Blockchain Labs for this, and also for some of the other organizing sponsors. So really appreciate that. So to Chairman and Dr. Jiao, I totally agree with a lot of the stuff that you mentioned. While I didn't understand the language, but I did follow all your English slides, so I think that was helpful. Couple of things I wanted to just bring up. I think DBS has had a fantastic year the last 2 years, particularly in awarding, getting a lot of receipts around digital accolades across the world, and in terms of various types of achievements that we have worked with various set of initiatives around the world. Now, we were recognized for Global Bank of the Year from The Banker, the best bank in the world from Global Finance. We got the stuff for best digital bank as well from Euromoney. So there's quite a few achievements that we are very proud of as a bank, and how we want to establish ourselves going forward as a very future forward-thinking organization, and how we compare ourselves to rest of our peers, and now even with some of the fintech partners that we have in this space. So we have a very different approach. Now, unlike a fresh fintech where it's a fresh startup in terms of a new idea and trying to solve new problems in the marketplace, for a bank, we already had a legacy business. We already have, for 50 plus over years for DBS, running a commercial banking exercise. And we had all this infrastructure that has been supporting that across all the countries that we have. So how do we move forward, and how do we get involved in a more digitized fashion with our customers, and improve on the journey for the rest of the markets and our customers' end-to-end services? So we took an approach about 5-6 years ago where we wanted to actually improve on our infrastructure. So one of the things that we have done is we have, in the last 5-6 years, almost 90% of DBS bank infrastructure is now cloud-native based technology. We have improved a lot of that across all our streamlined processes in the consumer bank, in the retail bank, across all the countries. Now, again, one of the reasons why we drove that is we wanted to make sure, going forward, we are a lot more nimble in able to deliver solutions out there in the marketplace. So it's a long journey out there in the last 5-6 years in getting into this sort of infrastructure. So a big part, let me repeat that, is in the new piece of technology, which we're very proud of. And this allows us to do a few things. One, we took a stance that we are no longer going to compare ourselves with other banks. That's a clear stance that we have actually taken. Because in this coming go-forward space, it's very difficult to sit down and compare. And traditionally, we always compare. We launch product A, we compare it with another bank to see how the other banks are doing, assuming the other banks got it right, which is not always the case. So what we do going forward right now is we focus on customer experience, and that's the whole idea around how we want to approach them. And we look at a few things. So we look at all these big tech companies around the world who have been so successful, companies in China and the US, and what is their mode of success, and how can they increase that type of volume and improve their products and services across all the customers. They can do thousands of suppliers and working with thousands of transactions on a daily basis, approve loans by the thousands every day for these companies. Today, if a bank was to approve thousands of loans a day, the bank will collapse. Okay? There's just no way the bank can do this. We have a very stringent process around that. So one of the things we did was we wanted to make sure in every initiative DBS go forward, we have a model across a few things. How we acquire customers, how we transact, how we engage with our customers, how we build ecosystems, and how we leverage data. So these are the 5 main things that we look at. And let me help you put that into perspective. The very first one is acquire. If you look at the Googles of the world today and the Amazons of the world today, the cost of acquisition of a customer is really, really low. But for a bank, the cost of acquisition is really, really high, because we have relationship managers, we have sales managers to embark on our customers and in the various markets and various sectors to onboard and find businesses. That's a very expensive model, and it's not a very sustainable model going forward, considering how we see how some of the markets, some of the major big tech players moving into the financial space. So one of the things we wanted to do is create that acquiring element of banking more and more digital. Today, we have ability to open bank accounts for a lot of our corporates in the SME side of the business, where it's a lot more straightforward. Almost 94% of SMEs today are onboarded digitally in DBS. And that's because we have an online account opening platform. The other aspect is also in terms of loan applications, and I'll get down to a bit more of that. So acquiring customers digitally is a key focus, and that's one thing we want to do in any initiative that we go forward in the future. Now, once you've acquired customer, the next piece, which is really, really important, is transacting. As a bank, we are the engine. We process all these transactions to customers all over the world. And how do we ensure that we create that instant fulfillment experience? Today, in a banking world, if you go and make a transaction and it says transaction successful, it doesn't actually mean that it reached the beneficiary. It just means successful for the bank. It doesn't mean successful for the sender, right? Because you don't know if it's still reached. But going forward, a lot of this, especially in the wholesale world, one of the things we want to do is ensure we give the customer that instant experience. So one of the ways we have done that, in every country where there is real-time applications and real-time systems, we have participated in them. We get involved. We ensure that we can pass through information through that systems. We can make payments through that platform and give customer the real-time experience in terms of payments. That was one of the main drivers across Transact. In every aspect, and that includes cash management, trade finance, and supply chain financing, and documentary trade transactions. We're getting into that phase. Not all of them are there yet, but a big part of that is moving towards that direction. So once we acquire, then we transact. We transact as much digitally as possible, and we want to make sure we reduce the level of paper and the seamlessness across all parties. The third part is engage, and that's been the challenging part for the banks. You acquire, you transact digitally. How do you engage? Engage is about how do you get customers to buy more products in a bank, right? And we're also thinking through as a firm, is products even the right thing, the way of approaching it? Because if you look at all our big tech companies, they engage very well, and they know how to bring forward solutions and offerings to the customer based on data and the behavior, and seeing how they can actually improve on that journey and acquire more and more businesses. For banks, it's always been difficult. Getting on to the next product with a customer is not so straightforward because you don't really get to understand the complexities of what they do and how they operate through an online channel. But that is something where I think we can fix as we go along when we start getting data. So when you acquire, you open a bank account, you start making payments, that's our second product. You start receiving money, that's a collection, that's a third product. You start issuing an LC product, letter of credit, that's a fourth product. You start getting involved in foreign exchange, that's the fifth product. How do you do all of that digitally without having a salesperson or relationship manager in front of the client? That's the challenge that we are trying to address. And I think we have done a good job in trying to work with that with some of the modern age names, and I think there's still a lot more work to be done with a lot of the traditional names who've been around, large corporates even, who have to go through that journey to improve their efficiencies. The last piece is, the last two pieces I think is critical. If you can acquire, you can digitally process everything, you can engage with customers in more products. The tools which allowed us to really build on that is a lot of the solutions that we built across our APIs. Today we have 107 APIs. We count them because we categorize them by various groups in terms of bank account information, statuses, notifications, LC applications, foreign exchange inquiries. Virtually anything that you do in online banking today can be done through APIs. In fact, the solutions that we have available today, you can have everything done through APIs and zero use of online banking. The solution is actually ready right now. Now, the fact that we have all these APIs available, it now allows us to help get into ecosystems a lot better. And I'll explain that as we go around in terms of the collaboration that we have done with Wanjiang. So the ecosystem is our go-forward approach. Now, we have picked specific sectors which we are very excited about, specifically around shipping and logistics, the commodities business, the autos business, healthcare and insurance, and even the e-marketplaces. These are some of the sectors which we feel highly disrupted, and the sectors are also responding to change, and they want to make a change. And these are areas also we've been working very closely and actually done some transformation with these clients. And one of the things we want to do is find the right anchors we can work with. To be able to build on an ecosystem access the number of players in the ecosystem, and see how we as a bank can provide those financial services to enable that whole system more seamlessly. So that's our approach around plugging our pipes to all the major platforms. Lastly, in terms of our overall digital approaches, we acquire, we transact, we engage, we build on ecosystems, and with all that, we want to be able to go to what we do with data. I think data, is, it was mentioned as the new oil. I think we consider it the new air. It's relevant for us in terms of how we take information and how we metadata that, and in terms of how we take that forward in terms of using it in the actual businesses and adding value to the client. We are, as a bank, I would say, in infant stages on that. I think we could be moving a lot faster, but we're working on those things. And these are things which is allowing us, I think, in understanding the next potential business, which allow us to engage with our customers more and build on more products and services as we move along. So that's our overall plan. That's been our approach, and that, I think, has given us all the accolades that we received, because a lot of the clients that we speak to today, they find DBS being the type of bank which engages with the client in a very different way. So how do we work with a client? And that will also apply to how we worked with Wanjiang in this particular case. One of the things we do is we have a framework in how we bring customers to the bank. DBS wasn't always perceived as the global bank for a lot of the multinationals. But these days, we have a lot of multinationals who speak to us simply because of the way we engage with them on digital ideas and concepts. And the way we do that is through our 4D framework. The first thing we do is discover. We spend a lot of time on workshops discovering what really is the challenges in the business and how they operate. It's not a banking question. Traditionally, banks will always ask, what are your pain points? What's your problem with financing? What's your problem with cash management or bonds or FX? It's very product specific. We no longer take that approach. We take an approach around, what is the challenge in your business? How can I help you in your business? And that has actually taken a very different clients have taken a very different stance on that. And they've also given us an opportunity to explore more with them in terms of how we can build on their businesses. The clients are more happy if the bank can tell them or work with them to grow their business than just solving their specific banking issues. So we've taken a very different approach there. Once we've done the discovery and we know that, these are the 3 things we could look at, we narrow it down to something we can really work on to do the transformation. A lot of the old traditional names we're all used to, very large, but they're also very fragmented and very paper, and the processes are not very streamlined. A lot of the companies we find have a digital strategy, but not many know how to actually execute it. And that's where DBS has come in to be able to really explain and define a specific set of solutions which we can move them forward from a digital standpoint. Then we develop the actual solution, and we try to do that all agile, with all the agile principles and trying to get that thing going. And we try to deliver the solutions as fast as possible. Delivering solutions for us today has been a lot faster simply because of the infrastructure that we have put in place over the last few years. Like I said, a big part of infrastructure in DBS right now is very current. I think probably more advanced than any other bank in the world today. I wouldn't swap my position in terms of infrastructure and digital learnings and understanding of the staff base in DBS in terms of digital with any other bank. Now, one thing, the other thing I wanted to highlight is also with all the digital engagements and how we work with customers, what was very important is finding the right leader. So we got into this opportunity to actually work with Wanjiang. We went into this discussion thinking, okay, we knew Wanjiang, blockchain, as a subject matter expert in this area. And we had the banking piece, they had the blockchain piece. And we wanted to make sure that we collaborate with them. And we wanted to make sure that we share the expertise between the two of them and get to a solution that we can work with. What we realized as a bank, we hear blockchain all the time in the last few years. We understood it, but we never really got down to the details on specifically how this can really add value and how the bank can really get involved. And Wanjiang blockchain really helped us with that. I think we had a very important workshop in China where we spent some time with them to really understand and get to the bottom of it. It is very easy for a bank to participate in various blockchain platforms. There are so many other platforms and consortiums out there. But what we realize is if I go into these platforms and consortiums, and if I cannot increase the business, and if it requires a lot of effort to bring clients and build it's a challenge. So one of the things we want to do is work with a large anchor, and that's how Wanjiang came into the picture. In February 2018, last year, we started a strategic cooperation agreement with Wanjiang. And in November last year, we actually went live with a real solution. And the solution is very interesting. Wanjiang being big in the auto sector, to me, and I think for all of us here, we understand, is one of the most largest and most complex supply chain network there is. It is multi-layered, there's various parties involved, and it's very fragmented across, especially in this case, particularly around China. And we have some global clients, which we also know that it's quite fragmented around globally. So this would be a great place for us to create some efficiency. So one of the things we worked with them is signing up the partnership with Beijing Auto, with Wanjiang, working with Beijing Auto and China Capital Logistics as one collaboration to see how we can get stuff going. So one of the things we did was we came up with a solution on the automotive industry, on blockchain, connecting car manufacturers, exporters, logistics carriers, and car dealerships together. So the use case is actually very, very simple. A dealer today, a car dealer today, if he needs cars for his dealership, he actually calls up Beijing Auto, please send me 10 cars. And Beijing Auto will then appoint the logistics player for them, in this case China Capital, to say, can you just deliver the 10 cars to the dealership? The logistics dealer will then call the carrier to be able to transfer the bills across to say, these are the cars, these are the shipment addresses, and you need to transfer those cars to the dealership. Very simple concept. And this is just one little piece of the overall scope of work in the automobile space. And in this particular use case, where we send cars to dealership, DBS plays a role in supplying the potential financing for some of the SMEs in that space who potentially couldn't access financing. Now they can, because of the access of information through the blockchain that we can get and the information that we can gather, the comfort that we have with the risks that we take with our major anchors like Beijing Auto and China Capital, we can now finance these transactions and make this process a lot more smooth as a bank. With the blockchain platform itself, it creates a lot more transparency, it creates a lot more coordination across parties, it creates trust across all the players, and it gives also the bank a lot of comfort in how this is being orchestrated in China, how it's being orchestrated across Wanjiang, and all the players coming in. So we are looking forward to doing more with Wanjiang. And one of the things we also want to work on is some of the new industry sectors that we should be exploring. We are very keen in understanding the commodity space. That's an area that we want to really develop on. We also want to work with in enhancing blockchain to the next level in terms of how we bring IoT into the picture. These are all one of our primary focuses that we want to work on. And I'm so glad we have a strong partner with us on this journey, and particularly in a market like China. I think that's a great achievement. So with that, I would like to turn it on to the next party. So thank you very much for the opportunities. I hope I was just glad to share with you all the information. And